September the 7th, 2001, Hurricane Erin was born in the Gulf of Mexico, and it moved up the east coast of America, and on September the 11th, 2001, it was at its strongest. It was stronger than Hurricane Katrina, and it was about maybe a couple of hours off the coast of New York. And that's all in the data. You can go and check it out. So why was that hurricane there on September the 11th, around the time of what was going on in New York? Well, I think they wanted blue skies for 9/11, and that hurricane being there sucked all the water vapour and the cloud systems out into the hurricane, and it gave them blue skies over New York. They needed that to help with the plane stories and also to be able to see what was going on. I think that was why they manufactured that hurricane or moved it to that point.
What about Hurricane Katrina as well? Is it possibly manufactured that?
Hurricane Katrina was steered. Several people, quite well-respected people, have stated that Hurricane Katrina was steered. The residents of New Orleans reported that the levees were destroyed with explosives, not because of the result of the hurricane. We've got a news report where the residents actually said that. I haven't seen the actual story, but I've heard that divers went down to inspect the levees and saw the scorch marks on them. But I haven't studied that story in any depth. But Jim McCanney, who has done a lot of work on weather modification type technology, he says that he had developed a technology in theory, on paper basically, of how hurricanes could be steered using a laser on a satellite. And basically the laser would be fired into the eye of the hurricane, and it would heat up the air there, and that would cause it to be, you could basically pull this hurricane around by the eye, because it would change the temperature of the air in the centre, and that you could use that to direct the storm and the flow of the wind. So I'm convinced that weather modification is real, and I think that chemtrails possibly play a part in that, going back to the chemtrails. Also, I think there could be other substances being introduced into the chemtrail mix. This might be why there are different patterns and different sprays, and they do it at different heights. There may be two separate projects, one for doing the weather and one for affecting people's health, which is done over centres of population, as you said earlier on. And I think the most likely thing to me is immunosuppressive chemicals. Rather than putting bacteria or deadly bugs in the mix and spraying them, which in fact they have actually done that, that's already admitted.
Are there not bacteria that live in the atmosphere high up that wouldn't normally come down?
I've heard that. William Thomas, who's a chemtrail researcher, he says that there are bacteria that live in the upper atmosphere, and because of the way the air circulates, normally they stay up there. But under certain circumstances, and if you use like HARP or something, or when there's a certain amount of air traffic, possibly that can cause this bacteria to come lower down. But it's not something I know a lot about. That's about all that I've heard about that, and I've never really studied it in any great detail. But I tend to think that if they are going to put stuff out there to affect people's health, they'll make it immunosuppressive, because that way it's less detectable, and they'll just put it down to other toxins in the environment, all the industrial sort of output, and cadmium and mercury and heavy metals. It just all goes into that mix of stuff. And therefore it becomes less detectable. That would be my take on chemtrails. I can't prove either of those. I can't offer you good data other than the studies by Clifford Carnicom that have got some quite good data on them.
Also, like you say about the conductivity of the atmosphere, if it's increasing that, it would increase Wi-Fi and mobile phone capabilities and whatever else is going to come via radio waves.
Correct.
If RFID tags are to be brought in, if we're to all have them put in us, is it going to make them more useful?
That's a good question. I think there could be something to that. Again, it's speculation on my part, but if you are modifying the electrical properties of the atmosphere, then why are you doing that? Well, Clifford Carnicom has mentioned that it could be something related to communications, as you say, which is basically enabling RFID to work over a greater distance, or to have maybe a higher kind of bandwidth, so that they could get the data from all these. Because if you're monitoring all these RFID tags remotely, you surely must need some bandwidth to do that. The more devices that you have, this is something I just thought of, but it's obvious really. The more bandwidth you're going to need in whatever transmission system that you're using to get this information, the more bandwidth you're going to need. So maybe it's something to, as you say, to make the communication systems work faster or more efficiently, something like that. But that's just guesswork, because none of this is based on
nobody knows.
Publicly disclosed information, because they don't exist officially. So that's the problem that we're faced with. So in summary, really, chemtrails are real. You call them what you will. If you don't want to call them chemtrails, some people say that's a bad term, because it might not be chemicals, it might be something else.
Like minerals.
Well, yeah, it could be anything. You call them aircraft trails, or aerosol trails. That's what Clifford Carnicom calls them. So I really don't know what to make of them. I know that people are concerned. I'm getting more people contacting me out of the blue. People like yourselves. I had a chap rang me up last weekend to talk to me for about 2 hours about chemtrails and all this kind of stuff. So people are becoming more aware, but what the end result will be, I don't know. So.